Well, we had it on
Oh, how
before.
I love you, honey, hush. Your lovely cheeks make roses blush. Your lips are divine, they taste just like wine. They seem to whisper of love.
Are you here? Welcome to episode number 1062 of the Paul Leslie Hour. Today featuring Conal Fowkes in his fifth appearance. Enjoy an interview diving into classic American songs from the 19th and 20th centuries, paired with recorded live piano and vocal performances. That's right. This is an interview and concert with Conal Fowkes. So let's get this show started.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Paul Leslie Hour. I've had quite a day today, in addition to some technological figuring it out. I had a dentist appointment. I'm pleased to announce there were 0 cavities that they found. Yes. And I'm very happy because today, while I was sitting there in the dentist chair, the wonderful soothing sounds of Fats Waller were going through my earbuds, and it made dealing with a dentist a lot more pleasant.
I would think so.
You also are in the Fats Waller fan club.
Oh, absolutely. Since I was a kid, and to this day, I never get tired of listening to Fat Swallow.
Yeah.
He's one of my desert island. If I had to pick one or two guys, I think he's going to be on that list.
Well, we're going to be getting into that. We're going to be getting into a lot of American music, but I want to welcome back. Our last checkup together was 3 years ago. It was March, I think it was March 2022.
You would know better than I, but it doesn't feel that long ago, I have to say.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, it's fantastic to see you again and welcome you for your 5th appearance on the Paul Leslie Hour.
It's great to be back, Paul, and it's always a pleasure talking to you. I got great memories of doing this in the past, and I'm surprised that this is the 5th time, actually. But yeah, wonderful. Thanks for having me back.
It's a pleasure. And actually, you came requested, and I'm glad that you came back. But let me ask you, why are you surprised that this is the 5th time?
Just because my memory is failing me, and I don't remember all these things. And when you contacted me and you said this would be the 5th time, I'm like, wow, we really done it that many times. It's
Yeah.
and I guess you and I go back quite a number of years by now. I don't know
Yeah.
how many, but it's quite a long time.
Yeah, that occurred to me too. I thought we've known each other for 17 years, I believe.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. You
Yeah.
see, I wouldn't have thought that, but yeah.
So how are you doing, Conal?
Well, I have to say, all things considered, wonderful. It's been quite a few years since I saw you, since we spoke. Were we still in COVID, or had we started to come out the last time we spoke?
We did an interview during the whole COVID times, but then the last time we talked, you were mentioning, like, I listened back to that today, by the way,
Okay.
and you were mentioning, oh yeah, it almost feels like old times. I've just played a couple shows.
Well, okay, so this winter, this last couple of months, January, February, and still now, has been the busiest I can remember, even pre-COVID times. So this is kind of wonderful. I can't give you a reason for it, an explanation, but I'm very happy to be busy again, playing. Not so much traveling yet. I used to travel all over the world, but I've done a little bit of domestic travel, but not as much as I used to. And I think since speaking to you, I did a whole European tour with Woody and the guys, which was fantastic. That felt like, the good old days back again. And there's been all sorts going on. And I just made an album with the High Society New Orleans Jazz Band, this is news to you, I think. So in looking for a steady venue for Woody and the band, we had all kinds of difficulties, and we eventually approached Birdland Jazz Club in New York City. And for various reasons, Woody wasn't able to commit to doing that as a steady gig, but the club agreed to take the band without Woody. And so been playing there every week, every Thursday at the fantastic Birdland Theatre downstairs in their newish venue down there. And we did a live recording there last summer for the Turtle Bay record label. That's a New York label. I don't know if you're familiar with them. Scott Asen is the CEO of that label, and they're a wonderful label. And they just, as far as I know, they just record kind of traditional jazz music. And Scott came to see us play and immediately suggested doing a record. So we did that. That'll be out this year. And it just feels good. Feels like there's a lot of activity. And of course now spring is in the air, and that just adds to this good feeling of new life.
Absolutely. Yes. Tomorrow is the first day of spring, so it'll be spring by the time people see this.
Right.
But it's a small world. I don't know if people will be able to see this, but a friend of mine, he got a brand new car. Congratulations, Robert! But it's got the built-in where you can play the music without a CD player. And one of the first songs that he played, Blue Moon, Conal Fowkes, on his new stereo. I thought you would appreciate that.
Wow, unbelievable. He should get a refund on that car,
You're too humble.
No, that's wonderful. Wow, look at that. That's great.
Yeah. What does it feel like to know that something that you recorded, which that recording was boosted quite a bit by Woody Allen, that there's people driving around the Palmetto State, for example, and they're listening to you play and sing?
It's a little bit surreal. It's hard to know what to make of it. It seems impossible in one sense, but then, with today's downloading and listening options that seem limitless, it's, I guess, not that surprising. But it's wonderful, but it does feel a little unreal. So that some complete stranger is listening to my voice, the other side of the country somewhere. It's a strange feeling, but good, I guess.
Yeah. Well, American music has made its impression on the world. And it's interesting to me because I get emails from people, and sometimes they're from another country, and I can tell that English isn't their fluent language. They're not as fluent in English as something else, but there's different songs that they know, and they want to talk about them. I had this idea that we could talk a bit about American music and maybe hear you sing and play some things, and I was very delighted that you liked the idea.
Yeah, sure.
Conal, can you remember the first time you were aware of somebody called the father of American music by many? I'm talking about Stephen Foster.
Well, I couldn't give you an exact, first memory, but I'll tell you absolutely, as a kid growing up in a small town in the middle of England, thousands of miles away from here, every kid in my school would have known, Camptown Races, Oh Susanna, probably Beautiful Dreamer, Old Kentucky Home. Absolutely, they're just in the ether. And I don't know I don't remember specifically like taking a Stephen Foster lesson at school or anything, but it's just around. The same with the spirituals from America. Every kid, and my parents' generation too, we grew up, and somehow at school or on the radio or mum and dad, you would know, Deep River, Joshua Fit the Battle of Jericho, et cetera, all these spirituals. And you might know the answer to this better than I, but Are they still teaching that stuff in school?
Many times they are. Yes.
I mean, I
Yes.
would hope so. I kind of fear that they're not, but maybe I'm out of touch because they should, absolutely.
It wasn't long ago I was listening to the actor Bill Murray, and this surprised me. He made a recording, New Worlds it was called, and for whatever reason, he decided to do a rendition of I Dream of Jeannie with the light brown hair.
Huh.
And I ended up listening to it, and his performance of it, he's not known as being a singer, but it was something that affected me. And I thought, how about this? Here's a song from, it's approaching 200 years, but at 150 years at least. And here I am being affected by it all these years later.
Yep. No, it's a deep thing, and I can't explain it, but it seems to be in our marrow and in our DNA. A lot of this music, and even somebody like myself who grew up, half my life I lived in England, thousands of miles away, and these same pieces of music were deeply part of our, culture and growing up also.
So is there a Foster tune that you might play for us?
With pleasure, yeah. Here's Beautiful Dreamer. And I haven't memorized all the lyrics, so I'm not going to sing it, but just play it. And I think there's so much about it that is core to American music. And you'll know what I mean. You're American. It's beautiful, and it's just as good now, I think. But anyway. Isn't that a gorgeous piece of music?
I'd never heard it instrumental.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It's a timeless, beautiful, romantic piece of music that just, to my ears, could only come out of this country. And it's still wonderful. And it's an interesting, for the musicians out there, it's written in 9/8 time signature, which is unusual. And it just has this beautiful natural flow. It's not really a waltz. It feels like a... But the phrasing is kind of amplified. It's almost like a double waltz or something. It's 3 lots of 3. Anyway, that's for musicians to get into. But yeah, beautiful, beautiful song.
Well, Foster was quite a composer.
No,
Absolutely.
he was absolutely. I think maybe for maybe for America, he was like for the Brits, Gilbert and Sullivan
Yeah.
in there. Now I know they made it over here too. Their music, I understand, is very popular here, but everything comes from Gilbert and Sullivan within the English music hall and then English songbook. And I think the great American songbook composers also were influenced somewhat by Gilbert and Sullivan. And maybe Stephen Foster is that guy for the United States. I want to mention, if I may, also James Bland, who was an African American composer contemporary with Stephen Foster, and he wrote Carry Me Back to Old Virginia, which became the state song of Virginia. And it's quite similar musically to Stephen Foster. I don't know the history if those two might have been influenced by one another or who precedes who, but it's absolutely American. It has that same American flavor that you don't find. It's peculiar to here, and it's absolutely wonderful.
It is. It's very wonderful. So somebody who mostly has recorded his own work through the years, but occasionally would record something of somebody else. And one of those songs from somebody else that he did was a Stephen Foster song. And I'm talking about Bob Dylan. Conal, did you see this new film, A Complete Unknown?
I have not seen it yet. No, I hear fantastic things about it.
Well, it's a recommended movie for anybody out there, A Complete Unknown. And when you look at the first album of Bob Dylan, the first album was almost exclusively old American roots music. And I think it was on the second or maybe the third album, he did a song called Karina Karina. And it's credited to some songwriters, but there's versions of that song that go back so far that they don't know who the original writer was.
Right.
What do you think of that song?
It's a classic blues, and it seems to fall right on the teetering point between, or that it could lean over into the jazz guys, but also into the country, the very beginnings of country music, and it's a wonderful piece of music. It's something that the New Orleans jazz guys definitely played. It's one of the tunes that's definitely in that bag of repertoire, as well as it's probably more known in the country world, I would think, but the jazzers definitely play it.
Yeah, to your point, I've heard it done in blues clubs. And when you look at all the different people, in addition to Bob Dylan, who did it, I mean, it's Jerry Lee Lewis. It's Taj Mahal did it. I mean, it's just had incredible life.
Yeah. And I think guys like Bunk Johnson and George Lewis and some of the New Orleans revival guys of the 40s, it's definitely in there also.
So when you play it, what kind of flavor does it have?
Well, I guess when we play it, it's a tune that Woody likes to play once in a while. I guess we lean towards more of a New Orleans blues treatment of it. Can I give you a little?
Yeah, we'd love to hear it.
So something like this. Karina, Corrine, Karina, where you been so long? I ain't had no loving since you've been gone. Corrine, Karina, where you stay last night? Corrine, Karina, where you stay last night? Now your hair's all messed up and your clothes don't fit you right. I met Karina way across the sea. I met Karina way across the sea. She wouldn't write no letter, she didn't care for me. But I love Karina, I'll tell the world I do. I love Karina, tell the world I do. Just a little bit of loving, let your heart be true.
All right.
Something like that. That Karina sounds like quite a woman. Despite all that, he was still in love.
Well, it's a song that's just endured. I mean,
Absolutely. There's something in Karina Karina that's elemental, like there is in the Foster music, James Bland. These, it's like it's got that marrow, if that's the right word, or that DNA that's just goes deep right away. It's
you know, Conal, there's another song that I can think of that has just endured. A lot of times people will contact me and they'll say that the theme music that we play at the beginning, they'll say, that almost sounds like The Entertainer. The rendition we play is performed by a pianist named John Primorano, who lives in Philadelphia. And I write back, and it always cracks me up, and I say, well, it should sound like The Entertainer because it is The Entertainer.
it's the Entertainer.
And now that's a song it's incredibly known. People know it even if they don't know the name of it.
Yeah.
And written by Scott Joplin.
Yeah, it's another one of those pieces. It's known all around the world. There's an ice cream van that goes down my street in 2025, and the little kids go ring it, and it's playing The Entertainer. Yeah, it's. I think with specifically The Entertainer, that piece of music, I think the movie had a lot to do with its popularity, because I think, the Maple Leaf Rag was way more popular during Joplin's life, and maybe right up until that movie. I don't know. That's the Maple Leaf Rag might just be the most popular rag ever written, and he wrote it early in life, and I don't think he ever bettered it. But these, ragtime music is the granddaddy of jazz music, if you like, and if jazz is the root of all subsequent popular music, it's one of those things that's also in the in the very fiber of it all. And kids, my little neighbor, he's now, well, he's grown up now, but since he was 4 or 5 years old, would run out to that ice cream van, and he that piece of music is in his subconscious or conscious or whatever. It's just part of him. And I bet the same would be true of the maple leaf rag and some of these other classic rags. Yeah.
What does that mean, rag?
Well, there's a lot of opinions as to the meaning of it, and the one I might subscribe to more is ragged time, that got shortened to ragtime, which got shortened to rag. And with the composers of, original ragtime music, which has a particular form and shape, the word ragtime became so popular that it was then used for all kinds of things, like songs. They called it a ragtime song, and it wasn't strictly speaking in ragtime form. Like the word blues, actually, same thing. That word became so popular that it was used in all kinds of non-blues situations because it sold the sheet music. But yeah, I think I like that explanation, but there are others. Ragged time. And so the ragged time, if you like, for your listening audience, I'm going to simplify things very much, but ragtime music kind of has a very obvious square bass, steady, kind of umpar. But the magic that ragtime introduced to the world that made it so popular was that the right-hand melodies would accentuate offbeats and accents that would go against this very steady and that's syncopation. And I think that's the reason that it was so incredibly successful. I mean, it really spread all over the world very quickly and was hugely popular because of that syncopated element. And I think that's what they mean by ragged time.
So, Conal, could you play us, perhaps, Maple Leaf Rag?
Yes, with pleasure. 1899, I think this was written or at least published. So it's an early Joplin rag. Maybe it might even be his first, I'm not sure. But amazing that it was, despite the many that he went on to write, it was still his most popular, successful.
Marvelous playing, Conal.
Thank you. But isn't that a classic piece of music?
Absolutely.
And to think in, 1899, 1900 or so, people went crazy for that. They'd never heard anything like it. And it did amazing things.
I like to try to imagine when I hear pieces of music like that. Just imagine you've never heard anything like this before. You look at the other music of that era, the things that predated it, and just imagine what that was like. You hear that for the first time.
Yeah, I've tried to do that, and it's near impossible. When I think of a piece of music like that, or somebody like Jelly Roll Morton, let's say, who lived and died and had his incredible career and changed the world of music and wrote all these pieces, never having, for example, even the concept or idea in his wildest things of the atomic bomb or space travel, or let alone what we've experienced just in the last 20 years with, computer technology and all this kind of thing. So it's so difficult for us to even imagine hearing something like the Maple Leaf Rag without bringing with us, all that we've heard and all that we know. But just imagine you were there then. This is pre-motor vehicles. This is horse and buggies, and yeah, it's hard to put yourself there. But I've often tried, and I think what was in Fats Waller's mind and spirit musically, let's say, that led him and made him think the way he thought and be influenced by what he was influenced. And what would he have done had he been born 30 years later, let's say, or Jelly Roll, the same thing.
Yeah.
And I don't have an answer for that, but I've often wondered. Because it's very much, a lot of these amazing people, it's very much about when they came about. It's the timing at which they were, where they were, is as much a part of things, I think.
Well, next month I'm going down to New Orleans, and
Oh, wonderful.
have you traveled there much?
Yeah, it's been a while since I was there, but I've been there many times, and I've played the festivals, the Jazz and Heritage and the French Quarter Festival and these things multiple times. And I've been just for pleasure a couple of times, but it's been years since I was down there. But that's one of the great American cities.
Absolutely.
And obviously, for any jazz musician, it's like going to Bethlehem if you're a Christian or whatever. It's the cradle.
Well, speaking of New Orleans, I think about a lot of the great composers and the great players that are from there. Jelly Roll Morton really changed everything.
He sure did. Yeah, Jelly's a fascinating person. He left us a very big body of work, luckily for us, and it's all of it's been written out, and there's recordings. He's a fascinating composer. He's a complete original as a player. You can't, put him in a category, really. And he seems to have been an amazing, a one-off person, and not all in a good way. He was very, apparently a very difficult guy. He was supposedly running prostitutes and gambling establishments as well as playing music, and he was kind of a wheelie dealer guy. He was kind of itinerant and moved around all over the place. I don't mean in a sense of being poor and homeless, but he was constantly on the move and living in different parts of the country. And amazing character.
He's still in the mind of a lot of people. I remember hearing Bob Dylan. He called Randy Newman the heir apparent of Jelly Roll Morton. Do you have a favorite Jelly Roll song that you like to play, or maybe you'd like to play it?
There's so many. He's one of my absolute favorites. Well, Paul, I'll let you choose but there's a beautiful bluesy vocal piece I could play for you, or something more stompy and piano centric. I don't know if we've got time for both, but what are you feeling like? Something bluesy and vocal and laid back, or something more pianistic?
Maybe something more pianistic.
Okay, so here's Jelly Roll Morton's Shreveport Stomp, which is from 1924, I believe, and was recorded as a trio, I think. But I'm going to do a solo version of it.
Alrighty. Wow. Extraordinary.
Isn't that an amazing piece of music? I mean, where does he come up with all this? All this harmonic craziness. And the first strain, I love all this beautiful classical, ornate melody. I don't know. It's absolutely amazing. Ragtime form, those different strains. But it's Jelly Roll Morton, and he's a one-off.
Well, Conal, I know you've got a performance tonight. The idea that I had for doing this, I was listening to Fats Waller, and I was thinking he's kind of like a bridge between the jazz world and the rock and roll world, at least to my ears. He seems like he's right there in the middle. I wonder if maybe, to send the viewers and listeners on their way, you could play just a touch of something from Fats Waller, maybe just a little bit, just to show people what that sound was like.
With absolute pleasure. how about Honey Hush, which is a late Fats composition, 1939 or so?
Right.
And, we'll leave the listeners with that one.
Yeah, you did it on your album Dizzy Fingers.
Long time ago, yeah.
But this will be a treat.
Great. Honey Hush, Fats Waller. Oh, how I love you, honey hush. Your lovely cheeks make roses blush. Your lips are divine, they taste just like wine. They seem to whisper of love. Oh, how I love you, honey hush. My heart is giving me the rush. I'm dreaming my dreams, I'm scheming my schemes. Please tell me yes, my honey hush. Now your eyes shine like stars above, making me know that I'm in love. Oh, my sweet, don't do this to me. Tell me you'll be always with me. Oh, how I love you, honey hush. My heart is singing like a thrush. I'm saving my dimes, I hear wedding chimes. My sweet, my lovely honey hush.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Conal. Everybody out there, it's conalfowkes.com, Fowkes. And also be sure and follow him on Instagram, where he posts from time to time. And if you get a chance to see him live, you will be very happy that you go. Thank you, Conal.
Paul, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, as always. You take care of yourself.
All right.
Let's hope we do this again.
I hope so. I hope there'll be a sixth.
Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Karina, where you been so long? Karina, where you been so long?
We thank you and appreciate you dropping in for the Paul Leslie Hour today. You know, you can help the Paul Leslie Hour in our mission to provide independent media content like this by visiting www.thepaulleslie.com/support. We truly thank you. This is your announcer speaking. Performance of The Entertainer intro song and Karina Karina outro song, courtesy of John Primorano. Well, that's it for today. So until next time, be safe and be good.